What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. DMZ Season 4 is in full effect and has been out for a couple of days already. With it came a full reset to us as players with brand new ways of unlocking missions, new factions, our insured slots having to be regrinded out, and a whole bunch of new stuff for us to unlock. I'm releasing a series of videos essentially tackling all of the different factions and all of their missions, every single tier and everything, and I'm combining the ones in tier 1 together since these missions are generally more straightforward. Now we've already covered Black Mouse, White Lotus and Crown, and today is the last faction, probably the last one that you'll unlock, Phalanx, and we're looking at the tier 1 missions for that faction. Now I put a disclaimer at the front of each one of these videos and it goes like this. Basically, the missions can be done on any one of the maps which are available to us right now, including the new map Vondel, which was added in Season 4. But if it specifies specific POIs that you need to go to in each one of the different maps, then of course that forces you to actually deploy onto that map, and I'll be sure to differentiate between those two if that case arrives. Secondly, each one of the factions tend to favor a specific deployment location, with for instance Black Mouse being more flavored towards Al Mazrah and White Lotus being more flavored towards Ashika, and then of course Vondel being the flavor for Phalanx, which is the brand new faction. So a lot of the mission objectives are going to be taking us to this new map, and that's okay because this new map is a awesome experience. So starting us off with the first mission, Welcome to Vondel. This coincidentally might also be the one that takes you the longest and that you might consider the hardest, just due to the fact that you might be unlucky like me and really struggle to find these enemy radios. But this is a three-parter, and essentially the first part tasks you with just capturing a UAV tower. So look in the map, find whichever UAV tower you want to capture, pick one on the outskirts if you don't want to risk running into other players or want to lessen the risk rather, and go ahead and capture that tower. Now the step 2 and step 3 kind of like feed into each other, but as you kill enemies, same on this map and on any other map, they have a chance of dropping a small radio. What this radio does is it creates a localized UAV effect which lasts for a couple of seconds, and this pings enemy combatants in the surrounding area. This wants you to pick up one of those radios, and then with the resulting ping mapping out some of the AI for you, or enemy players for that matter, you need to kill those guys. Now there's a little bit of leeway here with this ping, where after it wears off you can still kill the AI and it'll still count, but generally speaking you need to be sure to rush as soon as you pick up one of these radios. Be sure to kill the enemies that it maps as fast as possible. In the footage that you're seeing in the background, I managed to get 2 off of one radio, and I was just too slow to get the third one. But basically keep killing AI until you get one of these radios, or 2 or 3, however many it takes of these radios to drop. Pick them up, drop the AI. Once that's done and all 3 steps are done, we're on to the next one. Mission 2 is ready to rock. And this one does not actually need to be done on Vondel, so this mission you can basically go anywhere where you feel you have a bigger chance of accomplishing these 3 tasks. But basically, the first one is getting yourself a large plate carrier, which is a 3-plate carrier. The second objective is getting yourself a large backpack, and then the third objective is getting yourself a self-revive kit. Now, the good news about this is it doesn't specify how you need to get these. So there literally is a multitude of ways in which you can accomplish this objective. You can get this off of enemy players that you kill and actually loot it off of them. You can get it out of boxes in strongholds, out of, you know, supply boxes that drop out of planes that you shoot down. And you can also buy this from buy boxes. So this is literally something that you can simply grind out. So pick your favorite map that you want to do this on. My suggestion, if you want to grind it out, you just want to farm up the money and you just want to do this while doing other objectives, is simply to do this on Al Mazrah. It's the most straightforward. You have a large map that you can basically loot, and you can drag this back to a buy box and buy. And also if you bump into a couple of strongholds, it's highly likely that you'll actually pick up a few of these items. If you want to get an easy shot at the self-revive kit without actually having to spend a cent, you can also think about targeting the hospitals around Al Mazrah. You have a whole bunch to choose from. Their locations are in the background right now showing you, and essentially as you go into these hospitals you can just check upstairs in the medical cabinets, and generally speaking each hospital will at least have one self-revive kit in. Otherwise, you could also just score lucky and just check bathrooms in houses. Oftentimes, these medical cabinets also have a self-revive in. Nonetheless, once you get these 3 items done, that's also you done with this mission. Mission number 3 is Cargo Keeper. This is a 2-step mission, basically expecting you to complete a cargo delivery contract. And then the second part here mentioning that you need to fully repair and refuel the transport vehicle. Now, First and foremost, the footage that you're seeing in the background is me doing the water version, the ship version of this contract, but there is also a land-based one. Both of the objectives are kind of the same. The point is a vehicle gets dropped off for you, so it'll either be a car on land or a boat on water, and you need to drive this essentially from the drop-off point, which is point A, to point B, which is the pickup point where the crate on the vehicle that you are transporting will essentially be lifted off. Now, the challenge in this mission comes from the fact that the minute you start driving either the car or the boat, you're going to be chased by an attack helicopter. And if you're solo, you can't shoot at this thing and drive at the same time. So this is where it gets a little bit challenging, because it does deal quite a bit of damage, and you can actually take a fair amount of damage on the way to the drop-off. And of course, if the vehicle is destroyed, that's no bueno. So the bottom line here is the second step here says that you should fully repair and refuel the transport vehicle. Now, the reason why I favor the ocean version of this, the water version of this, is oftentimes the vehicle gets dropped off right next to a actual water repair area or water fuel station, which means you can simply climb into it, and then there's going to be a little bit of fuel missing from the top, and you can just wait for that to fuel up, and boom, you'll have already your success of the second step, just like you're seeing in the background. Now, at this point in time, all you need to do is drive to the actual liftoff point, the actual place where you get the cargo lifted off the back of the vehicle. And again, in the water situation, it can be a case of, like me, driving through Al Mazrah City in the waterways, that you have a lot of cover overhead from bridges and things like that. So definitely favor this area if you want to have a less of an hassle from this helicopter shooting you from the air, and you'll be able to deliver the package in no time and basically unscathed. So once you've done that, you've got both steps done in this mission, and it's on to the next one. Crosstown is our fourth mission, and for this one we have to return back to Vondel, the new map with it. Well, did I just say new map? The new map that was added in season 4. There are several POIs on this map. 2 of them are needed to be visited in one deployment. So the first one is the cruise terminal, which sits all the way to the south of the map, and then basically you have the castle, which sits all the way to the north and basically the left of the map. So essentially you have to cover the map. Now, the good news here is the map is not super large, and you can actually cover this in a vehicle quite fast. So get yourself over to the cruise terminal. You can either do this in, opposite directions as well. You can also start at the castle, of course. But once you get to the one side, get the tick, and then get to the other side, whether you're doing castle or terminal first. And as soon as you've visited both, the mission will be done, and this is as easy as it gets. That brings us to mission 5, which is Day at the Zoo. Now, again, we need to be spending time on Vondel for this mission, since this is required specifically as the POI that is mentioned here is present on Vondel, and that is, of course, the zoo. So we need to be traveling to the zoo POI, and then there's 2 things we need to be doing here. We need to be looting 10 containers at the zoo. This can be anything. Toolboxes count, pretty much lockers count, fridges count, anything. So if you're struggling to find containers to loot, just make your way to some of the shops, which sit sort of like to the middle of the zoo, and in there you should find plenty of containers to loot. You also need to be killing 15 enemies at the zoo, and this can be human enemies as well as AI enemies. Now, the good news here, well, let me say there's good news and bad news here. The good news here is there's a shit ton of AI at the zoo, so you're not going to have a problem with finding 10 people or 10 AI, or rather 15, since the objective is 15 enemies to kill. That's going to be super easy, especially with the reinforcements that constantly drop in the area. But the bad news is essentially zoo is this map's fucking Rowan oil, meaning that players tend to congregate in this area a lot. There's also a dead drop at the zoo, so generally speaking, you are most likely gonna run into human players if you hang out here too long. So I would absolutely advise urgency. Keep your head on a swivel, move through the area fast, try and be a little bit sneaky, pick off the AI from the sides, and as long as you have zoo mentioned at the top, you are in the right place and you will get credit for those kills. And if you loot any objects, you will be credited for that. And as soon as you've done all 3 of these steps, we're done and dusted with this mission, and it's on to the next one. Well Supplied Soldier is our second last mission for the Phalanx faction in Tier 1. Basically, this is a 2-step as well. This expects you to acquire a secure supplies contract, and then it wants you to complete this contract in 2.5 minutes. Now, this is also a mission that you don't need to do on a specific map, so pick whichever map is your favorite, as long as you can find a secure supplies contract on that map. Basically, the secure supplies contract is one that was added in season 3, I believe, and this contract gives you 3 places to go to, 3 boxes to loot basically. And the idea behind the secure supplies contract is to help someone out that is just literally recovering from, a loss, meaning they don't have armor, they don't have a backpack, because generally speaking, these 3 different boxes that you visit on each one of the 3 milestones of a supplies contract is going to give you either a 2-plate vest or a backpack, or maybe like a self-revive or something like that. So get one of these contracts, then essentially just make your way between the 3 boxes. 2.5 minutes is super generous, except for one little thing. Sometimes on Al Mazrah, and I don't know if this can happen on the other maps, although I'm sure it could, but on Al Mazrah, what can happen is that the 3rd chest in the supplies contract can be inside a stronghold, and that's of course going to slow you down if you don't have a stronghold key. Now there's unfortunately no way for you to know if this is going to happen. What you can do is you can look the area in which you pick up the supply secure contract, or the secure supply contract rather, and see if there are any strongholds in that area. If there are any strongholds close by to that, chances are that it could happen that you would need to go into a stronghold. So maybe find yourself a stronghold key beforehand, which can very easily also just be gotten from killing AI or even buying it from a buy box, and then activate the mission so that you can be sure that you have as much of your 2.5 minutes available as you need to finish the mission. Nonetheless, 2.5 minutes is super and more than enough time, let me put it that way, for you to actually get to all 3 chests, just as long as you don't get bogged down in weird gunfights or anything silly like that. And as soon as you've picked up all 3 of these, the contract will be done. You'll be done under 2.5 minutes. You've got the time at the top telling you how much time you have left, and that's you done with this mission. And then last but not least, this gets us to the story mission for the Phalanx faction in tier 1. Of course, the story missions work this way, that they are the ones that once you finish them, they advance you to the next tier. And generally speaking, up until the point where you've completed enough of the other missions inside a tier, you don't know what to expect in your story mission. Now, the story mission for Phalanx in tier 1 is actually pretty cool. I enjoyed it a lot. Basically, first of all, it expects you to go to Vondel. So we got to go back to Vondel. And even though it's not specified in the mission, it's because of the requirement of the mission, and that being that you need to be finding a whole bunch of ISO hemlocks. Now, the enemies on Vondel have a relatively high chance of dropping this weapon as a weapon that they use. They also use a whole bunch of other stuff like LMGs, shotguns and whatnot, but the ISO hemlock is something that often drops from just the generic AI that you kill in the area. Now, the bottom line is you have 3 steps here. You have the first one saying that you need to drop 3 of these ISO hemlock weapons in a dead drop. Any dead drop will do. There are 5 to choose from on Vondel. And then you also need to be killing 10 enemies with an ISO hemlock. Now again, this can be AI or human players, but you just need to kill 10 with a hemlock. And then last but not least, you need to exfil with a hemlock in the same deployment. Now there's a little bit of funny things going on here, and I did some tests with this because of course the hemlock is a weapon that we can take in with us as well. So funny things here. First of all, the hemlock that you take in with you as an insured weapon does not count to be dropped into the dead drop. Or I've seen some people mention that what you can do is you can basically strip all of the attachments off and then it does count. But in my testing, throwing a ISO hemlock into the dead drop that had my attachments on did not work. So you absolutely need to be throwing 3 of the hemlocks that you find off of dead soldiers into the dead drop. Now, as for the dead drop itself, the one that I chose was the museum one, simply because that area gets reinforced a lot by AI. It does generally not get visited by human players all that much, and it allows you very easily to move in between the buildings where the dead drop is in the basement, as well as across the way where, again, in I guess that's a university or something like that, where you're going to see, a lot of reinforcements and stuff like that coming in. Now, you also need to be killing 10 enemies with a hemlock, and for this, an insured hemlock actually does work. So if you bring in a hemlock, the kills with that hemlock will actually count towards the 10. And then last but certainly not least, if you extract with the insured hemlock, that also does count for the extraction. At least it did for me. This mission seems to be a little bit buggy, so I do apologize if something happens that maybe the specific hemlock that you have does not extract correctly with the attachments. You'll see that the footage in the background here, I redid this mission where I essentially only used floor loot hemlocks, and that way it's the best way for you to ensure that you actually get the credit for this mission. So that means in total, lastly, just to summarize, you're going to need 4 hemlocks, you're going to need 3 which you throw into a drop box, and you're going to need a 4th floor loot hemlock which you will take with you out of the mission. Please be sure to have it in your hands or in your secondary slot and not in your backpack. That could also screw around with it. And that's basically it. As soon as you've done all 3 of those tasks, you're going to be done with the story mission, you're going to be done with tier 1 of Phalanx, and we're going to move on to the next tier. That's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments down below how you found the Phalanx factions missions. That's really difficult to say super fast. And if you enjoyed these, I thought it was pretty cool. I like the new map, I like Vondel, so I like spending time on it. So this is pretty sweet. Also, let me know if there are any of the descriptions or anything like that that I wasn't clear on, something that you're struggling with. I'll be more than willing to try and help you out in the chat. And last but surely not least, also let me know any missions that you are currently struggling with. I'm busy working my way through every single faction, every single mission, every single tier, so eventually they will all be on the channel. But I'll be willing to prioritize something if there's something that's specifically causing a bit of an issue. Other than that, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Until next video, fucking cheers.